I'll be going through the answers quickly, so make sure your course book is open in front of you, and please stop and rewind the video as you need to. So, got your book open in front of you? Are your answers in capitals? Want to know why the answers are the answers? Then let's go. For question number 1, what we need here is a verb to introduce the adjective that follows. And there are 2 possible verbs which collocate with the adjective that follows. Sure. You can either make sure or you can be sure. Both of those absolutely fine. For question number 2, we've got to choose the correct relative pronoun which connects the idea mentioned before with what follows next. Now we've got to be careful here because we're not talking about a specific location, because if we were, we could say where. But we're talking about an environment, which is kind of an abstract idea. So here it's not specific, it's not where, the answer is which. For question 3, couple of things to think about. First of all, the context. The context suggests that even though you have all of the things that I mentioned before, it won't be enough somehow. So we need to introduce the idea of a negative. The other thing to think about is whenever you've got a gap just before an infinitive verb, such as be in this case, it might be a negative. So the negative that we need here is not. For question 4, given what we've just discussed for question 3, that these things might not be enough, it means that you actually you choose or you go to something else that might give you that particular edge. And so what we need here is the correct preposition to complete the phrasal verb, which means the same thing as that. In that case, you turn to something else, and that's why the answer is to. For question number 5, the context is that the athletes use something else instead of their own personal skills and so on. So we need some form of comparative to introduce this other thing, whatever it is. And so the answer here is other than. For question number 6, we have to be aware of the language pattern after convince, and that is you need to convince someone. So who is the person that needs to be convinced? Well, if we understand the context of the text correctly, we understand that you are the person that needs to be convinced. So how can we express this? Well, of course, we need a reflexive pronoun, and so therefore the answer is yourself. Question 7, easy phrasal verb. You blame something on something or somebody else. So here the answer is on. Question number 8, once again, we have to look at the whole sentence structure in context. If we do that, we can see that there is a contrast being introduced or a contrast being talked about, which means that we need the correct subordinate conjunction to introduce that contrast. Now, in a previous open-close question, I talked about the dangers of perhaps choosing whilst over although. Certainly, in this case, all 4 of the answers are absolutely fine. Although, though, while, whilst. I would always encourage you to go with although because it's going to be the safest one in all of these circumstances where you need to introduce a contrast word. But once again, if you don't know the differences between although and while and whilst, then please go consult a good grammar guide now or the internet, find out why and how these words are different. But for this particular context, all 4 options are absolutely fine.